books, coffee, and I choose to believe this is a cat paw. No offense to dogs. I love dogs, but we all know cats is where it's at. Are you good to go? Okay. Hello everyone, I am Michaela Kathleen, and this is my February reading wrap-up. The first book I read this month was the Legion of Regrettable Supervillains. This was a really fun read. It's kind of just telling about all these lesser-known supervillains that are mostly rather ridiculous. My favorite ridiculous character was Brickbat. He is a villain who throws bricks filled with poison. And so I quote in regards to this character, "With some supervillains, you find yourself pondering which came first, the concept or the name. With Brickbat, there's very little guesswork involved. A crook who dresses like a bat and strikes his victims with bricks is not a concept that exists independently of the word Brickbat." And then a character who I thought actually seemed like a really good villain, and I don't know why he didn't take off, was Generic Man. Everything he touched would turn generic, and it seems like this comic had some pretty good twists and turns. Apparently, Generic Man is actually defeated. He is killed in his comic, and so like his label just changes to dead because he's just like a white like frame of a person with just a label that says like Generic Man or something. And then so his label changes to dead when he gets defeated, but then the label changes to reincarnated. So that sounds like a really good twist. So then after reading the Legion of Regrettable Supervillains, I read the League of Regrettable Superheroes. And my favorite one in here was actually Brickbat's hero. He sounds like a great hero. I don't know why he wasn't more popular. He was called 711, or number 711, and he is a man wrongly convicted of a crime, and he's in jail, and he breaks out every night to be his superhero alter ego, which sounds like a really cool concept to me. So yeah, these were both really fun books. I got them from Loot Crate, which I actually got for my boyfriend, and they were really fun reads. Definitely some very interesting characters in here. So next, I finished up the Thousandth Floor series, but I'm actually going to talk about these last. And I ended the month with a reread of All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. I wanted to reread this before the movie came out on Netflix. It actually came out yesterday. I'm planning to watch it tomorrow. I'm really excited. So yeah, it was fun to get to reread this. The first Jennifer Niven book I actually read was Holding Up the Universe, which was her second book. I got an advanced reader's copy of it, I think 2 years ago is when it came out. And I loved that one a lot. That was a 5-star read for me, so I wanted to go out and get her first book. And I did not like All the Bright Places as much as Holding Up the Universe, but I think it was still a solid 4 stars on that. I think that's what I rated it. But yeah, I enjoyed my reread of it. It actually feels a lot like a John Green novel to me, maybe because of all the road tripping and the Indiana. It gets quite dark, of course, but I feel like it handles some important topics, and there are definitely still plenty of bright parts. So, getting back around to the Thousandth Floor by Katherine McGee. I wanted to talk about these last because I am going to have a lot of spoilers since I'm going to be talking about the entire series. I read this last month and it was a reread, and I really did enjoy this one a lot. I liked the first one a lot more than the second and the third, which is pretty typical for me for like dystopias or futuristic novels, because I'm really a sucker for world building, especially that kind of world building. Like, I like fantasy world building, but I love futuristic dystopian world building. So this one was a lot of fun for that reason. So I read this one last month as a reread, and then I finished up the series this month with The Dazzling Heights and The Towering Sky. So last month I didn't talk a whole bunch about the first one because I wanted to finish the entire series before really getting deep into it and really deciding on my opinion on it. And on my reread, I did find that the thing that annoyed me most still was annoying in that I don't care much for Atlas. He just doesn't feel like he has a whole lot of characterization to me, and some of the characterization that he has is kind of cliche, like the crooked smile thing. Does every boy in YA need to have a crooked smile? And then also it's just a little bit of a weird relationship with the Avery Atlas thing. I would perhaps find it even weirder if I had adoptive siblings, because I think they feel like real siblings, but I don't, so I don't know. It's something that you kind of just, you either go along with it in the story or you don't, I guess. But yeah, Atlas definitely is not my favorite. I actually really kind of liked Avery and Watt as a couple a lot more. I think Watt's relationship with Nadia, the supercomputer in his head, is really interesting. Nadia actually kind of reminded me in a way of Eco from the Lunar Chronicles. Very different personalities, but just the whole idea of like robots having personalities I always find really interesting to read. But I liked how Watt, you know, kind of stopped using her when it came to Avery because he like actually liked her. But then that kind of gets thrown out the window in the second book, where he's suddenly like, oh, I never actually liked Avery. I really like Lita. And I was like, why? Lita was terrible to you. But moving on from those two to another main character point of view, and that is Rylan. I love Rylan a whole lot. I really love her relationship with Cord. Basically the whole series through. They're kind of on again, off again, because, you know, to create drama throughout 3 whole books, they can't just be together the whole time. But their relationship is really lovely whenever they are together. And then we have our point of view character in this book who disappears, who I really enjoyed, and that is Eris. On my reread, I actually couldn't remember for sure who died at the end, so that to me speaks really well to like the mystery of it, or maybe I'm just really bad at predicting the endings for books. But yeah, so it was sad for me that it had to be Eris, because she was super fun, and her growth once she goes down tower is really good. And yeah, so I think this one was a really good setup for the series, and it definitely gave me a lot of hope for the series moving forward. And the rest of the books, they didn't disappoint me. They were still good. They just probably weren't as good as this one. So moving on to the Dazzling Heights, which I read for the first time this month. I was really disappointed to find that Mariel was not a point of view character in this book. She had the final chapter on the first book, which I really liked, and I was looking forward to continuing to read her point of view in the second book. But instead we got Calliope, which, I don't know. Calliope felt kind of pointless to me, especially in the third book. Calliope's growth in this book just felt kind of sudden and unrealistic. Like, why does she suddenly care? And it seems to be Atlas that makes her care because she likes him. But at the same time, Atlas is rich. Like, I understand feeling bad about getting the waitress fired, but not so much about Atlas. So, I don't know. It just, Calliope's whole thing felt blah to me. As I kind of hinted at when I was talking about the first book, I really didn't care much for the Lolita-Watt relationship. I kind of, like, got used to it because they stayed together, and so then whenever they would break up and get back together, I'd be like, I don't care about these two, so just let them stay together. This on again, off again is not doing anything for me. I just didn't find it super realistic because Lita was pretty terrible to Watt. I also did not like the Rylan and her teacher storyline. It was just extremely cliche and predictable, and sad that we have to have storylines like that. But I did like that Rylan started going to I liked the holography class, the movie class, even though I didn't like where it went with her teacher. And I really liked how in the third one, she's an archivist for Disney. That was super fun. The Frozen shout out was great. But yeah, Rylan also kind of in the third book started to feel disconnected from the story for me. She didn't so much in this one, but in the third one she kind of did, like Calliope. Like, it felt like their chapters were kind of unnecessary. So with the death in this book, I obviously did not get anywhere close to predicting the one in this book, since I couldn't even remember who it was for sure on a reread. And I equally was not good at predicting the death in this one. I kind of thought it was going to be Calliope. Maybe that's because I wanted it to be Calliope. And then of course I kind of thought it would be Lita, because that's where the book was leading to, but then it switches again. And it ends up being Mariel, who I wanted as a point of view character, but I suppose since she wasn't, I'm fine with her having gotten killed off. I also don't love how the death wasn't resolved in this one like it was in the first one. Like, I understood that that built the mystery and made you want to read the third one to find out, but then the beginning of the third one, like, this story continued to feel unresolved with, like, all of the storylines. With, like, the time jump, it was like, well, what happened? Everyone's just living their lives like nothing, no deaths have occurred. And so, yeah, it just felt kind of unresolved going from the second to the third book. It does eventually resolve the death at the very end of the third book, but yeah. So, moving on to the third book. This one also changed up the whole death scenario, and in that it revealed who dies at the beginning of the book, and it was Avery, which I felt was very exciting to kind of change it up. Although I, of course, immediately was questioning, does she really jump? Although it would kind of make sense, since the whole series is kind of about, you know, the richer you are, the higher up you are on the tower, the further you fall. So it would kind of make sense to have it be Avery, who is ostensibly the richest, most perfect life. And I kind of immediately wondered, like, since I was thinking, like, Avery probably doesn't jump, so then I was theorizing that maybe someone would come save her. And then later on in the book, I was theorizing that, oh, maybe one of the other characters goes to the same place to jump, and they kind of save each other, none of which happened. I thought that the helipad at the beginning was gonna be where the jumping was happening. I thought it was like foreshadowing. Nope. I was also excited in the early chapters by the idea of getting to see kind of Avery dealing with the whole media frenzy with her dad running for mayor, and also getting to see how terrible her parents are, because, like, it's kind of a background thing that you can kind of get a sense of in the first two books, but I was excited to really get to see that. I liked the character of Max a lot. I was super suspicious of him the whole way through. I think just because I thought it was maybe going to be a thing where he was just after her money, but I was glad that that wasn't how it was, because that I think would have felt kind of cliche. But it was obvious that she was still going to be in love with Atlas. Maybe unfortunately, because again, Atlas is just not that great. And this, I did sometimes get a little bit, I guess, annoyed with Avery, with her, like, getting so mad about Atlas being there, and it's like, well, Atlas lives there too, is he supposed to never come back? This book also featured Calliope as a point of view character, which felt even more pointless than in the second one, because now she's not even conning anyone, she's reformed. I didn't find it super realistic that her mom was actually in love with Nadav. Just didn't seem like her type, and I felt like it was a little bit unfair to Calliope to suddenly be asking her to be this good girl person when your whole life as a mother you've been having her be a con artist. I did find the Bryce and Calliope relationship somewhat interesting. Like, that was the best part of Calliope's storyline, I guess. Because Bryce is kind of just a background character in the first two books, and he's kind of seen as a sort of bad guy, but we don't really know anything about him. So seeing these two kind of baddie characters come together was somewhat interesting, but again, very extraneous feeling to me. As I said, Rylan feels a little bit extraneous in this book, like Calliope does. She breaks up with Cord and ends up back with Hero, which I was okay with. I feel like old and early in our lives relationships like that can sometimes, like, you just always are going back to that person even if you shouldn't be. I did find it funny how it said Cord came between Rylan and Hyrule. I think Hyrule's drug dealing came between Rylan and Hyrule, but whatevs. As for the ending of the book and the whole series, I thought the reveal on who killed Muriel was very good. I definitely did not expect it to be Nadia. I knew that eventually Nadia would do something that was not good, that would kind of make it clear to Watt that having her was not actually a good thing, but I didn't expect it to be that. Avery confessing was a big surprise to me. Avery kind of just disappearing, going off the map was also surprising. I liked it though. I liked that she did not jump. At the very end, I was definitely expecting Lita to be the one to rescue her, but it turns out she rescued herself, so that's nice. Again, at this point, I barely even remember Calliope and Rylan's ending. I do remember. They just were, again, not... Their endings didn't have anything to do with the overarching ending, so their endings were just kind of blah for me. But still, overall, a solid book, a solid series. I definitely like the first one the best, but the second and the third were still enjoyable. And the series makes me interested to read her new series that she has, which is called American Royals. I enjoyed this series a lot, and that one is about, like, if America had had a royalty system and where those descendants would be nowadays, like the Washingtons and the Jeffersons and everyone. And with how interested I am in Hamilton lately, I think that sounds like a really cool concept. And I enjoyed the series enough that combined with that cool concept, I would be totally interested in reading the American Royals series. So yeah, these were all the books that I read this month. I had some good rereads, finished out a series that I've been waiting to finish out for a while now, and had some fun superhero stuff to read. Let me know if you read anything interesting this month, and if you've seen all the Bright Places on Netflix, let me know what you thought, and hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. Thanks!